and we are going to get started. Um, Thank you for being here. My name is Adam Pearl. I'm president and CEO of Art Pride New Jersey. Really excited to have everybody with us for our organizational survey technical assistance webinar for ArtsPay NJ 2025. Wanted just a few items of housekeeping for anyone that might want to utilize closed captioning. We encourage you to use the feature inside the Zoom webinar here. It should be a button that you see CC show captions. Also, we want to mention that the primary reason we're doing this is absolutely to record it and share this webinar. We know lots of folks are busy or maybe not so busy on vacation this time of year, and so we wanted to make sure we captured this recording. Will be put up on some of the organization's YouTube pages and certainly on the ArtsPay NJ webpage within about a day or so. We absolutely encourage you to ask questions, especially questions that may be helpful to folks who were unable to attend here live in person. We encourage you to use the Q&A feature for those questions. We will also keep an eye on the chat if there's anything that we need to share or discuss in the chat feature. And we're going to jump right into it. With us today, we have a number of my friends and colleagues, John McEwen, the Executive Director of the New Jersey Theater Alliance, Erica Nagel, who is the Deputy Director of the New Jersey Theater Alliance, and David Reese, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Baker Richards, which is the research firm we've been working with for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of ArtsPay. And with that, I am going to pass it over to John McEwen to get us started.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everyone. Great to be with you this morning. I want to just, for those of you that might be new to ArtsPay NJ, we just want to give you some highlights of the importance of this program. So I think we have another slide. So this was a project that was started a few years ago. I think many of you might have completed ArtsPay NJ 2023. It is a project that we plan on doing every other year, and it's a long-term project to build pay equity. We want to inform and empower arts workers and arts employers by the collection and analysis and transparency of data. As many of you know, we have all completed many salary compensation surveys. Most of them have been national or regional, where New Jersey is just a very small slice of the pie. So we were never really able to fully capture data that we could utilize for the uniqueness of our field. So the 2023 surveys did set a baseline of compensation levels in our sector. And the reason for doing the survey, of course, in 2025 and moving forward every other year is we want to start to begin to see where changes and trends are. This is coordinated by the Arts Service Organizations of New Jersey. We thank all of our service organization partners for their collaboration in this effort, as well as the support and encouragement of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. And it's been wonderful working with Baker Richards, which is a UK-based arts research firm. And we thank David Reese and all of his colleagues for their great support and guidance. And I'm going to be turning over the program now to David Reese. Good morning, David.
Thanks, John. Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm David Reese, the Chief Strategy Officer from Baker Richards. Great to be with you this morning. All the way from sunny Cambridge in the UK. So just very quickly, who is Baker Richards? Well, as John says, we're a kind of UK-based but international consulting and research firm. We've worked with over 800 organizations around the world since 2003. And we also carry out kind of sector-wide research, including ArtsPay, which we've been running in the UK since 2014. And we started obviously in New Jersey in 2023. So this is the kind of the second round of this project. I thought it might also just be useful. On the next slide, you'll see kind of a snapshot of the dashboard, the organizational dashboard that we created off the back of the last round. And I'll just share my screen to jump into it, just as a reminder and as a kind of way of familiarizing yourself with it if you haven't seen it before. This is one of the outputs of the last piece of work. Just bear with me while I share my screen. Hopefully that is sharing. If anyone on the call that I can see from the other panelists can kind
Yes,
of
it's working.
perfect. So this is the kind of the overview. Last time we had 129 organizations complete the organizational survey, which is great. Hopefully this time we'll get even more. In total, that counted to about just under 8,000 total kind of personnel, so kind of jobs that were captured, which is a really kind of robust and then kind of in-depth data set that we then had. Eric will walk you through the kind of the spreadsheet that kind of forms the basis of this dashboard later on in the webinar. But just to kind of quickly run through this. So the kind of the first page is just an overview of the different types of organizations. You can have a look to see which kind of work categories were captured, which work areas. There's a little map of where they were across the state. Within the organizational summary, you can then see and you can filter on various different kind of criteria. So you can have a look to see which of the 129 organizations, we can see what the benefits were. 60% of them were giving kind of vacation pay. You can see what they're made up of in terms of art forms, how jobs break down by type of worker. And so you can then filter. So if you wanted to look at just organizations with budgets at certain kind of levels, you can use that to kind of filter on those. The real core of this, though, is the kind of the compensation section itself. So this is where you can kind of have a look to see how those kind of 8,000 or so different jobs break down in terms of compensation. So if we wanted to look for specific kind of work areas, and then so if I look at administrative, and I apply that, and then I look at job types within that, and I look at, I'm just going to click on administrator not to get too far into all of the kind of various options. Then I can see that my kind of administrator roles, I've got 7 in there, what the kind of median compensation is on an annual basis, if they're only at an hourly basis, and if they're only project based. So there's kind of various ways in which you can then drill into the detail of who, of kind of like what is being paid across different jobs. Let me clear that. And then finally, there was one final tab, which was on budget, which was just asking organizations within the survey to indicate whether or not their budget had changed year on year, and if so, what it had done in terms of going up or going down. So again, that's something that we'll be able to track and have a look at across now 4 years of data, because it was asking about budgets in the prior year, budgets in the current year, and then this time round we'll be capturing budgets for the forthcoming year, plus the budget that's just been to understand change. So we're kind of capturing more data points, which will also allow us within the the compensation tab to see how much has changed since that first round that we did it 2 years ago. So I'll stop sharing and back over to John.
Sorry, just trying to get the slides back up. Bear with me.
While Erica's doing that, David, I know we both saw this question in the chat.
Yes.
And so one of our attendees was asking if for the organizational survey, will there also be a downloadable PDF that someone could take a look at before jumping into the survey, the same way there is for the individual?
And the answer to that is yes, there will. There isn't right now. Apologies that it's not on there at the moment, but we'll get that up there hopefully either later today or at least by tomorrow morning, so that you can download it and have a look. I should say it's not as long as the individual one. So anyone that's downloaded the individual one and going, wow, there's a lot of questions. The organizational one is not quite as taxing. And certainly because of the various routes through the survey, not all of it will be applicable anyway.
Great. Thank you, David. So I shared some of this with you earlier, but just to reiterate why the project is important, as I discussed, this is the first comprehensive compensation survey for our sector here in New Jersey. 2023 was the first, and we want to be able to, as I stated, it was important in discussions with our various colleagues that we had data that was unique to New Jersey and not just a slice of national and regional surveys that we all take part in. We want to also make sure that with data, if we don't have data that we can refer to, it actually hurts arts workers and it also hurts organizations. We want to have data, we want to be transparent. That is the first step towards pay equity. And we also want to make sure by taking a look at this data that hopefully arts workers can actually have data where they can advocate, have the information where they can be better advocates for themselves. And also organizations will have data where they can actually learn and improve and strengthen their compensation policies at their organization. We want to make sure that we're moving forward and strengthening the compensation in our sector because we want to maintain the great talent, maintain and also attract great talent to our sector here. We also want to utilize this data so we can tell our story about the importance of general operating support. So when we're speaking to our philanthropic partners, we can reiterate the importance of strengthening our compensation at our organizations and why the support for general operating is so crucial to our field. We know systematic oppression creates wage gaps, and we must be able, through the data, to see where those gaps are so that we can address them. So Erica's going to share with you the couple of surveys that are out there. I'm shortly going to be needing to excuse myself from today's webinar, but I did wanted to just join for a little while to greet you all. And we are very, very excited that we can continue ArtsPay NJ 2025 in collaboration with our arts service organization partners. We again thank the State Arts Council for their support and belief in this project. And of course, working with Baker Richards has been, they've been really great partners walking us through and making sure that this data and the surveys are serving our field. So happy to turn it over to my colleague, Erica, and I'll stay on for a little bit later, but just thanking you all for joining us this morning. Good morning, Erica.
Good morning. Thanks so much, John. My role in this webinar is a little bit to narrow the funnel and get into some of the nuts and bolts alongside David. We've talked about sort of what is ArtPay as a large scale project, but what is the actual survey? So ArtsPay has two surveys that run in parallel. One of them is the individual survey. So this one, we actually had a webinar about this on Tuesday, which is recorded and up on the ArtsPay website. You're welcome to check it out. If you are on this call, you are likely an arts worker. And so we want you to fill out the individual survey about your own experience. That's self-reported data about compensation as well as demographics, because we can't ask organizations and organizations can't report on demographics. And so it's through the individual survey data that we really are able to identify gaps in terms of gender and race and things like that. It also offers a chance. There's a lot of open text questions, and there's a lot of opportunities to share your reflections and feelings about your journey with compensation, your current levels of compensation, your hopes for the field, things like that. So it's really, really important that we get a robust picture of the field through that individual survey. But today, what we're going to focus on is the organizational survey. So the organizational survey is filled out by one individual on behalf of an arts organization. That person might also fill out the individual survey about their own experience, but in this survey, they're really doing it kind of as the voice of the organization. So we want all nonprofits in New Jersey for which the arts are the primary focus of their mission. So, you know, we might have something like the Boys and Girls Club where they offer art classes and they have some art camps and things like that, but their primary mission is kind of in a different sector. So that would not be a perfect fit. But a performing arts center, a dance company, a gallery, a theater, anything like that, we really want to hear from everybody. So that's what we're going to be talking through today. So how do you get started? Really, the first thing is decide who at your company is going to fill it out. You don't want multiple people logging in and duplicating work. The length of time it will take to complete the survey really depends on the number of employees. You'll see in a minute, we'll run through kind of the general questions, and then we'll look at the spreadsheet where a lot of the more granular detail comes in. If you've only got 5 employees, probably completing that spreadsheet might take you 20 minutes. If you have 100 employees, it's going to take a little bit longer. So it's really, we can't give you a hard and fast, like you'll be done with this whole thing in 25 minutes. We really recommend gathering your company payroll and information, as well as the benefits that your company offers before you start the survey. Just get all that information together, log into whatever systems you need. And that way you can just kind of fill it out with all of that really at hand. We've had the question before, if you don't offer benefits, do we still want to hear from you? Absolutely. Plenty of companies in our state and in our sector pay their employees, but aren't in a position to offer a retirement plan or healthcare or things like that. We want to know that because that's part of the picture of our sector. And we really need to be able to see that and report that to funders and things like that. So a couple of things that are new this year. I think we have some folks with us today who are new to ArtsPay and maybe didn't participate last time. And I know we also have some folks who did participate last time. But there are some things that have been tweaked a little bit based on feedback we heard from organizations. We did some focus groups, and it was really, really helpful to hear from the field to make these adjustments. So one thing is, if you took the survey last time, you can request your previous data. So you're not starting with a blank page in front of you. I think particularly for the spreadsheet, this can be helpful because it will already list out all of the different positions within your organization. So you can just update the numbers and potentially the terms of employment, but not have to rethink through who is every single person that works for us. And we'll share the language that you can use to request that from Baker Richards. This year, we also want to hear from organizations that have paid staff and those that have a mix of staff and volunteers and those that are all volunteer run. Last time, if you checked the box that said we have no paid staff, we're all volunteer, it would sort of bounce you to another page that said, thank you so much for your interest. We're only looking at organizations with paid staff. This year, there are a few questions specific to volunteer-run organizations, and the goal there is to get, again, a fuller picture of the arts ecosystem and for us to understand and for the funding community to understand how much volunteer labor is going into keeping our sector running. Finally, if your organization is affiliated with a university, we want to hear from you. Our colleague Diane from the Arts Council said it best the other day: non-curricular public arts programming at a university. So not necessarily like the theater department, but a theater that is hosted, affiliated, sort of under the management auspices of a university. We have some new questions specific to that structure of compensation and benefits that we just didn't have the capacity last time to get to sort of build that logic out. And this time we do. So we really want to hear from people like a gallery at a university, a museum at a university, a performing arts center at a university. And again, the logic will be specific to that experience. Okay, so now you've done all those things, you've gathered your materials. How do you fill it in? Everything is on ArtsPayNJ.org. These webinars will be recorded and posted there. There's a really great FAQ, a couple different kinds of FAQs there. Last round's data is all there. So go to ArtsPayNJ.org and click Take the Organizational Survey. The button is actually a couple different places on there, but they'll all take you to the same place, so you can't miss it. We recommend downloading the spreadsheet first thing. You can also take a look at the questions as a PDF preview, which David mentioned before. Make sure you've got your payroll data and your company benefits easily accessible. And you will be able to save and return to the survey if you can't complete it in one sitting. That said, if it were me doing it, I would really recommend doing the spreadsheet first, because that's going to take the most time. And then when you're doing the general questions, you get to the end, upload your spreadsheet, and you're good to go and you're done. And the general questions should really only take 20, 25 minutes. It's the spreadsheet that really takes a longer stretch of time. So that would be my recommendation, so that you don't have to kind of start and stop and get your head back in the game. Okay, so the organizational survey has 2 parts, and we're going to walk through them with a screen share. So I'm going to hand it over to David, and he's going to talk about the sort of general survey questions section.
Thank you, Erica. I'll go back and try sharing my screen. Hopefully not break anything in the process. Okay. You should be able to see my screen. Great, Erica's thumbs up. Okay, so this is where you land when you take the kind of organizational survey. First of all, it asks you to put in your name, and this is just in case there's any kind of issues that you have as you're doing the survey or you get stuck, that we can then, at Baker Richards, we'll be the only people that see how your kind of name of your organization connects to your answers. But if we need to go and help you with anything or kind of send you your version of the survey, we can direct it to the right person. So this is just a way of identifying each organization. After that, you kind of land on the kind of the home page of the survey. It'll give you a little bit more information, and it'll prompt you to download the salary spreadsheet. If you haven't done so already, you can click on that and then it'll download it. There's a few little bits about what it is that's kind of new this year, but most of the things that Eric has already spoken about. If you wanted to kind of jump to the individual survey as well, there's a link there just for convenience. So I'm going to click on next. You'll get kind of various prompts throughout this, but hopefully most of it is fairly intuitive. I'm just going to have to put in something here to continue with the survey. So again, job title is just useful for us to understand who it is that's filling in the survey each time. So I'm just going to put in test title with all of these, because this is the live survey. I don't want it to go into the actual dashboard. And then you get to the kind of what type of organization kind of best describes you. So this is where there are various options here. Hopefully we've covered all of the bases this time. There are a few that if you click on, actually there's one, I think one that if you click on, you'll get booted out of the survey, because this is for non-profit. So if you say that you're a for-profit, the next page will take you to a disqualification. So I won't click on that. There are some that are kind of university affiliated arts organizations. If you click on those, the next page then, it kind of tells you, thank you for kind of identifying as an institutional organization. The rest of the surveys are then tailored so that you know that once you're on that route, you're on a slightly different path to everyone else, which is the new thing this year. I won't go through all of these, but effectively you'll be prompted to ask some questions about what your affiliation is, what your relationship is with the parent institution, who makes the kind of decisions about the kind of the organization itself, what kind of autonomy you have, and whether you directly hire staff or manage staff. So all of that then is then kind of tailored throughout the rest of the survey. I'm just going to go back though to the here and say that I'm going to be an independent non-profit, which the bulk of the respondents will be. The next question that you're then asked is, are you a primarily volunteer-led? Now, this is again a new kind of part of the survey this time, so that if you say, yes, we are entirely volunteer-led, no paid staff, again, you are taken to a slightly different section of the survey. You'll be told that that's what's happening on the next page. Thank you for identifying. And then there'll be questions that are specifically about volunteer only organizations. All of the others will go through because there is some staffing at least involved. So I'm not going to go through all of the survey, but you can kind of get a sense of some of the questions if I just click through, and we'll put up the PDF as soon as we can so you can see what's coming. But it's not as long as the individual. Most of the work, as Erica said, comes from filling in the spreadsheet. But yeah, there are a few that kind of take a little bit of time just to click on kind of some of these radio button grids here, asking about kind of staff roles. And for those that did it last year, a lot of the questions you'll recognize as those that were kind of directly the same as last year. As you go through it, there are some kind of tweaks that we've made to the survey itself. So last time we didn't ask about the percentage of where budget came from for different sources. That's a new question this year. I think we just asked about overall operating budget. So this one you have to kind of work out. And with all of these things, you know, approximate is better than just nothing, just so we've got a general sense of how these things break down. So a rough idea is great, but you will have to make sure that it adds up to 100. So if I don't, then it won't let me continue. So already we're halfway through, almost halfway through the survey, and you can see how quick that was. So the rest of it is again similar kind of type of questions, moving into kind of questions about budget, around how much of that is for kind of salaries versus operations. So a lot of the things that you will recognize from last year, and hopefully fairly intuitive. But I say you can also save and continue. So if you wanted to at any point go, okay, I've done enough for today, I want to save, just click on the button on the top right. You'll get a prompt about entering your email. I mean, I don't know where this goes because this is hosted by our platform. So if you're worried about kind of then being recognized, you know, with your email, I have to say I don't know where this goes because it's the platform itself which only sees this. So at Baker Richards, we don't even see what that email address is, just so you're aware. Great. In that case, I will stop sharing and hand back over to Erica to look at the spreadsheet.
Fabulous. All right, I'm gonna share the spreadsheet. So one thing to know, what you're seeing right here is a like a Google sheet of it. Let's see. Is that working, that you're just seeing the Google sheet, David, not my whole desktop and everything?
I can see the kind of the window, but yeah,
Okay.
within that,
Perfect.
just the Google sheet and
Great.
not the other stuff as well.
Excellent. Okay, great. So when you download it, it won't look exactly like this because it will be downloaded as an Excel document. You are welcome to work on it in Numbers or another sort of spreadsheet program. You can put it in your own Google Sheet if you have multiple people that are putting information into it. But when you upload it, it will need to be in an Excel version. So the only reason I have it here as a Google Sheet is just so that I had it easily linked for myself, but it will download as a Excel document. So the first page of it basically has some instructions, some things to note. You know, this idea that if you need to copy cells, a reminder that you can do that drag down function in Excel, a reminder to only include arts workers. So things like caterers, printers, IT contractors, even though they are employed by your organization, they're not arts workers. So the data won't kind of mirror the individual survey. So you don't need to include them. So it just gives you some of those sort of reminders and tips, as well as an email address if you've got any issues. So here's what the salary spreadsheet looks like. And I've already gone in and pre-populated a couple of these just because we're going to walk through them. But those, when you download it, it will be blank. Last time around, we had some sort of samples at the top, and it what we thought was going to be helpful for people actually confused people because they didn't know if they were supposed to use those exact samples. So if you ever want to see a sample version, you can email me. I'm happy to walk through things or send versions, but for now, what you'll get is a blank spreadsheet. Okay, but we're going to walk through these as though we're sort of pretending that these are our employees. So let's imagine we've got a marketing manager. So the first thing you do is you type in their title. I already did that, marketing manager. And then you're going to select the work category. All of these are drop downs, so it should be pretty intuitive. So this person is an administrator, so we're going to say administrative. Then within the job category, oh, maybe I need to make it a little bigger. Huh. David, do you see any reason why that would be happening? This worked fine the other day.
No, I will see if I can.
Weird. Sorry about that, guys. That will not happen on the download, but we'll come back to it. But basically what this does is it gives you it just helps us parse the data a little bit more. It'll be a drop down. It'll be relatively intuitive to choose. So the type of
definitely works on my version of Excel. So hopefully it's just a glitch on your machine.
I'm
But
so
if anyone
sorry,
has any
everybody.
problem, then
Yeah.
you let us know and we'll kind of look into that.
How wild. I literally was doing this yesterday and it was fine.
And of course it would do this on a webinar.
Of course. The ArtPride team can edit this section out.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the type of worker is the terms of employment. So this marketing manager, they are on a W-2, they're an employee. And let's say at this organization, we just have one marketing manager. So you're just going to type it in. So the work area, this is where you can get a little bit more granular. So yes, I chose administrative in the work category, but in terms of the work area, you can go a little bit more in detailed and choose something like marketing. The terms of employment is, are they full-time, part-time, project-based, freelance, etc. So let's say that this marketing manager is full-time. The compensation terms is in what way do you think about their pay? So this person, they're full-time, they get a letter of agreement every year, and it tells them their annual salary. So when we're thinking about this person, we think they make this certain amount a year. The compensation amount is the amount paid for the given rate, right? So this person is on an annual salary. Let's say they make $60,000 a year. One thing to note is round numbers are okay. We're not like cross-referencing this with the IRS or anything like that. If you have it right in front of you and let's say this person actually makes $60,204.75. That's great. Feel free to put in that exact amount. It's also fine to say $60,000. The average number of hours of work per week. So this person is full-time. Let's say at this organization, that means 40 hours. There might be some organizations where that means 35. But that's sort of what they're expected to work and what they're compensated for. The number of weeks of work in a year. So see here, including paid vacation weeks. So this is their whole time. So this person, let's say they get a couple of weeks paid vacation, maybe they're, they've got sick time, things like that. We would still put in that they're working 52 weeks a year. If they're a seasonal employee, which we know there are a lot of seasonal employees in our state, and they're, they sort of working like almost like a school year, a theater season, and then they're not working during the summer, you might put in that they work 40 weeks that year. But for this one, we're just going to imagine that they work a full year. And then please provide any notes, any further relevant information. So this might be a place where you could say, they work 40 hours a week, but there are some weeks when around our annual gala where everybody pitches in and works a little bit more. Or you might say, this person was very recently the marketing assistant and just promoted to marketing manager, which is why this position maybe is compensated lower than the last time we reported marketing manager. Or you might be like, nothing more to see here, no need to put any notes, nothing else they really need to know, and just leave it blank. Totally fine. Okay, so that's basically like the sort of simplest full-time W-2 employee. Let's do a part-time employee. So let's say we've got a ticketing associate. I think that would be also administrative. Again, apologies about that one, but it's going to work on your spreadsheet. Type of worker. So let's say they're a part-time worker. They're still on a W-2. They're paid through payroll. And so here's where it's the number of people these terms apply to. So this hopefully makes it so that you don't have to type out ticketing associate, ticketing associate, ticketing associate. Let's say you've got 10 ticketing associates. Now, the trick is that needs to be 10 people who are paid pretty much the same rate. So if you've got some people in, let's say it's your box office or your reception area or something like that, and 5 of them are paid $18 an hour, and 5 of them are paid $16 an hour, you might want to do 2 different lines. If it's tiny little changes, right? If it's like 5 of them are paid $17 an hour and 3 of them are paid $17.10 and 2 of them are paid $17.25, you could sort of say 17 or sort of take the average. But if it's a big enough difference that when you're thinking about your payroll, you think of them in different pay categories, then we would recommend doing, another line, even if it's the same title. Okay, so you've got 10 ticketing associates working part-time. So their work area, I would say front of house, box office, gift shop. It's my best guess. Terms of employment, they're part-time. And these guys, these folks get paid hourly. So again, this is the gross amount paid for the given rate, right? So let's say these folks work hourly, and you know that as you're looking at your data, like it ends up being about $25,000 a year, but you've picked hourly for your compensation terms because that's how their pay is calculated. So you're going to say their hourly rate there. Average number of hours per work week. Again, this can be round numbers. You don't, if you've got one ticketing associate who works 20 hours a week and you've got one ticketing associate who works 2 hours a week, you can use your own judgment of whether you feel like that needs to be 2 separate lines. But if you're like, generally our ticketing associates work 12 to 15 hours a week, you can even write 12 to 15. David probably doesn't love that because his team would have to clean that up on the back end, but you can say, maybe take the average 13 hours. And the number of weeks in a year, if you've got year-round ticketing associates, 52. If they're seasonal, you can use your best judgment there. And again, this is a place in the notes section where you might be like, some ticketing associates work 10 hours, some work 15. We've said 13 to simplify our data entry. Okay, teaching artists. This one is close to my heart as a former education director. And also we had a really fantastic focus group with some teaching artists to help us think through the individual survey and make sure that their experiences were captured, because it's complex in our sector, how teaching artists are compensated. So let's say you've got a teaching artist, I would say education. These categories are basically going to say, when you click education, it'll be like education administrative, education teaching performance, education teaching non-performance. It just sort of breaks it down a little bit further so that it helps keep the data anonymous, basically, so that when David and his team are aggregating the data and analyzing the data. If somebody has a teaching artist title that is just a little out of the norm, like senior teaching artist / strategist or something, this will help us keep the categories such that the data can be meaningful. Okay, so type of worker. So we know that this varies across our state. There's plenty of organizations that pay teaching artists on payroll, and there's plenty that pay them as contract workers. So since we've already seen two W-2s, let's do it as though it's a contract worker, and then we can go back. So how many people? Let's say you've got 5 teaching artists on staff. Probably say education outreach. Terms of employment. If they're on a 1099, it's likely project-based. Compensation terms per project. Compensation amount, let's say they're, doing a residency project and they're getting $5,000 per project. Average number of hours per work week, of work per week. And that's like during the course of that project. Let's say they're doing 20 hours during the project. But the number of weeks for something like this might be a lot fewer, right? Because let's say they're doing a residency project and it's 10 weeks. So in the notes, this might be a place where you say, these are for our residency programs. All other teaching staff are compensated hourly or something like that. So teaching artists are a great example of a place where you might want multiple lines, because you might have one kind of teaching artist that's compensated this way. You might have others that are compensated on W-2. I know when I was an education director, even though all of our teaching artists were compensated through payroll, we had different rates for after-school programs and summer camp. We also had different rates for instructional time versus planning time versus meeting time versus waiting time. And so it's okay to have multiple lines that capture the different categories of teaching artists. I'd say when in doubt, parse it. And then it's kind of up to David and his team to make that data meaningful. Another way that you can do it is if you've got a teaching artist on a W-2, let's say let's make you a smaller organization. You've got 2 teaching artists, education outreach, and they're paid hourly. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. They are part-time. They're paid hourly. And their hourly rate, let's say, is $80 an hour. Let's say they are working 3 hours a week. And over the course of the year, maybe they work 20 weeks. Now, here in the notes is a place where you could say, $80 an hour is our instructional rate, but we pay $20 an hour for prep time, or $80 an hour is our instructional rate, but we pay $50 for professional development, or anything like that. So you can use the notes field to share that detail if the same person is paid different rates depending on the activity that's going into their teaching artist contract. Okay, we'll move on beyond teaching artists, but happy to take more questions about that, because I think that can sometimes be the most complicated one. How about a dancer? We've got a dancer that is part of a dance company. They're employed in an artistic capacity. This, when it works on your spreadsheet, will say things like performance. And the type of worker. So boy, this is an area I'm not as familiar with. I've never run a dance company. So let's imagine that they're on a W-2. I'm sure some companies work in some ways and some others. You might have 50 dancers over the course of the year, right? Because you might do 5 different pieces with 10 dancers in them, but it's not the same dancer every time. And this is where having your payroll information in front of you is going to be really helpful, because then you're not like doing the math in your head. You can really see who the actual people are that were paid. Their work area, performing, creating. And I guess we would say they are project-based because you're hiring them for a particular piece or a particular tour or something like that. And I don't know, let's say maybe it's like a weekly payment. Compensation amount, let's say per week, they're getting $600. Average numbers of work per week, maybe 15. I'm guessing that's probably low. And number of weeks of work in a year. So let's say it's these dancers are hired just for one show in your season. So maybe it's 8 weeks. And this is a place where you could say, it tends to be new dancers in each piece, but 1 or 2 dancers are sometimes hired for multiple pieces or something like that. Or you might be a company that has kind of a core company of dancers or actors or visual artists or whatever, in which case you might want to do a second line that's like resident dancers or dance company dancers, and they might be on a different kind of contract. They might be on an annual salary. They might still be paid per project, but they are in every project you do. And in that case, I would recommend having another line, and then another line that's sort of for the folks that just come on for like one or 2 projects a year. And then somebody like a set designer. So again, artistic, the job category will be non-performance. Type of worker. So this one, let's say they're freelance. And let's say you're a theater and you do 3 shows a year. So you hire 3 set designers. Let's see. I'm guessing it's backstage technical, but I just want to look through and make sure. Yep, if it were me, I would choose backstage technical. I think you could make a case for performing, creating with the creating side of it. So use your judgment, but I think backstage technical is the best fit. In terms of employment, project-based, and they're paid per project. And let's say they're paid $10,000. And average number of hours of work per week. I know with something like a set designer, you're going to have to estimate, right? Because you don't know how long it takes them to build their models or make their sketches or do the research or things like that. So you can sort of use your best judgment based on what you know about your own workers. And number of weeks of work in a year, right? I'd say whatever, sort of from when you start the planning process, first tech meetings, et cetera, through opening. So let's say it's 12 weeks. And this would be a great place to say, for instance, most of our set designers bring an assistant, but the fee for the assistant is paid directly by the set designer and is not part of our budget, something like that. So that hopefully gives you kind of a good swath of our field. Certainly, if anybody is like, could you go through this particular job? We can do that together. And I'm also always happy to just like be on a Zoom with you while you're filling out your own and able to answer any questions. So I'm going to stop that share unless, Adam, anything has come up that needs this share still open.
No questions at the moment right now.
All right, let's see. I'm going to stop that share. I'm going to switch over here, reshare. and back to slideshow. Okay. So I'm not necessarily going to click right through this link. I just want to make sure we still have plenty of time for questions. But on the artspaynj.org, when you go down to the sort of about the organizational survey, there's another link that's FAQs specific to organizations. The general FAQs on the ArtsPay website are a lot of what we've gone over today. Why is this important? Who's funding this? Why are you doing this? The FAQs are more detailed to questions about how to fill in the spreadsheet, questions about what if I'm a volunteer organization. So definitely check that out. And if your question is still not answered, again, always feel free to reach out to me. Very happy to support however I can. So what will happen to the data? So David earlier showed you kind of where all of this data ends up in that interactive dashboard, which is publicly available, but it's collected, anonymized, analyzed by Baker Richards. So it is completely anonymous. The service organizations, the Arts Council, we never see an organization's name linked to its data. The only time we ever see an organization's name is that David's team might say, here's who has already completed it, so that we're not bugging you over and over again, right? If we know that Carolyn Dorfman Dance has already done their survey, we're not going to send you emails every day being like, please take the survey. So that's why that is asked. Adam, did somebody have a question?
Yes, there's a question in the chat. And one of our attendees asks, we hire musicians project-based to perform for one concert each. They are not salaried, but musician compensation is 50% of their annual budget. And it says we have negligible part-time compensation for staff, about 18% of annual budget. Do I include the musicians that we hire?
Yes, please. Great question. Yes, you are like exactly the kind of organization we want to hear from. That's really valuable information.
Thank you for posing the question.
Yeah. So again, in terms of the anonymity, another way that Baker Richards makes sure that the data is anonymous is that if there's a data set that's too small, they will aggregate that and adjust it. So for instance, if there's only one organization in a certain budget category, that's very unlikely, but just as an example, they would widen the budget scale in the reporting so that that one is able to kind of lump in with the other groups. Because the point of this whole process is not to have people say like, oh, I can find out exactly what this one organization pays. It's really meant to say, okay, in South Jersey, what does a development director at a museum at a budget size of $10 million make? So they will adjust that on the back end to ensure that. Then the data is released in two forms. There's a written report, which primarily is the data from the individual survey, sometimes with some information about how that speaks to the organizational data. And that written report, usually it's pretty long. Last time it was really comprehensive. And then there was a key findings version as well for folks that just wanted to really get the highlights. And then the interactive dashboard. And one of the things, again, that's new this year, because we're trying to measure change, is that we'll be able to, I don't know if it'll be a toggle. I don't know. I'm not from Baker Richards, but they will figure out how we can compare data in the dashboard. And all of it is free and available to the public. I know John's before said, we've been part of other compensation studies that don't really capture New Jersey. The other thing that we see a lot in other compensation studies is that they're kind of gatekept, and that they are either only available if you pay for the information, or they're only shared with executive leadership and kind of guarded. And so we really, from the beginning of this project, it was important to all the service organizations and the Arts Council that this is publicly available information, that transparency is at the heart of this, because that it helps workers and it helps employers. Speaking of that, why you should be part of it is a lot to do with all of this transparency. So your organization will be better equipped to recruit, hire, and retain employees. I know that we've used this at the Theater Alliance as we've thought about compensation scales, as we've written job descriptions and figured out salary ranges to post for jobs. It's helped us think about just what is sort of out in the market, and how do we advise our member theaters and make sure that our own organization is in line with what's out there. It also will help create a more full and accurate picture of our field. So the more organizations participate, the better the picture of our field. Also, the more individuals that participate, the better picture of our field. And when we have that full picture is when we can make a really strong, informed, data-backed case for increased general operating support within the funding community. And of course, all of this is part of the larger project of moving our sector towards a more equitable and sustainable future. Who is funding this work? I think we noted this earlier, but just so you know, there's not like any sort of nefarious funding sources for this. All of the arts service organizations have coordinated the project, and they all also have made a financial contribution to make this possible. So New Jersey Theater Alliance, Art Pride New Jersey, Dance New Jersey, New Jersey Association of Museums, and South Jersey Cultural Alliance. And then, of course, our incredible partners at New Jersey State Council on the Arts. This is, it's really through their financial support and encouragement and convening of the art service organizations that this came about, and that we are able to continue the project this year to really measure change. So the surveys opened last week. The deadline for completion is August 28th. In the fall and winter, Baker Richards will aggregate the data, analyze the data, create their reports on the dashboard, at which point we will have a release webinar. All of those things will be up on the website. And then one of the things that we did after the last round that was really exciting was, based on the key findings and the gaps that we identified, there were a few key areas where we felt like with a little more education, a little more networking and peer support, we could hopefully try to move the needle on that, how we can use the data for positive change. So we'll do that again based on what we find from this.
The question's up there on the screen, but it's worth asking just to be totally clear. So asking about when we anticipate the organizational survey results will be published. So I see here fall, winter 2025. I guess I'll expand that question so that we're also really clear. Are we going to be releasing organizational and individual survey information at the same time? Are those two different releases? And does it potentially, when we say winter 2025, is there a potential this might get released, maybe even January, depending on how things sort out?
Yeah, I think all of that is possible. That's why there's not a hard and fast date up on this slide. I think, hopefully everybody will complete the survey by this August deadline. If we find that hasn't happened, there's a world where we might offer an extension. Any extension we offer, of course, then pushes the data release back, which is why we really would hope that we get a good critical mass of folks by the end of August. I believe last time we released them at the same time, but I'm not totally sure. I know that it's important for Baker Richards to look at both data sets to make sure that the data makes sense together. So part of how we knew we had a really robust and useful data set last time was that the median salary reported by the individuals and the median salary reported by the organizations was really, really close. And so we knew we had a data set that was speaking to itself accurately. So yeah, I think the hope would be to release them at about the same time, but David had to hop off. So it's really a Baker Richards question. I can also look into it and try to add that to the FAQs on the website. And yes, I guess it is possible it could be January 2026. But I will say the Baker Richards folks are pretty quick. They're such experienced professionals that once we have the data, building the reports is pretty efficient. So how else you can help? Obviously, choose the person on your staff that's going to do it for the organizations, but it would be amazing if you can encourage your entire full-time and part-time staff to complete the individual survey. The more individual data we have, the better understanding of demographics and perceptions and reflections and all of that we can add into the data. Similarly, if you can share with affiliated freelancers and artists in your network, if you hire if you probably have a database of all the actors you've hired or all the visual artists you've hired in the last several years, you can just send a big email with why this is important. You can link to the webinar, particularly the individual one. You can link to the ArtsPay website. The more you can help us build the data set, the better. Also encourage colleagues at other organizations to participate. Nothing wrong with a little positive peer pressure, saying, oh yeah, I just did it. Wasn't too arduous. I was able to get my data from last time, so it was like even faster than last year. Have you done it yet? It's really important. Any of those kind of things would really be much appreciated. And the individual survey webinar is on the ArtsPayNJ.org website, and this one will be posted within a day or so. So I know we're pretty close to time, but definitely want to make sure there's an opportunity if there are any other questions.
I don't see any other questions right now, but we can certainly give folks a second if they want to put them in the Q&A or the chat. Happy to do our best to try and answer.
And again, I think the next slide has my email address, so you can reach out anytime. Truly, no question is too small. If you're in the middle of doing your spreadsheet and you come upon a position that feels like you just don't quite know how to answer it, I'm happy to hop on the phone with you, hop on a Zoom, answer by email, and sort of think through it with you.
No questions, but some of our attendees are thanking us for doing this.
Awesome.
If we're doing thank yous, I'm going to throw out a thank you to you, Erica, and to John McEwen. This is a consortium of the arts service organizations across the state that are steering this, but nobody's carrying more of the burden than you and John. So we appreciate you taking the lead on this once again.
Absolutely. Well, it is our pleasure. We really believe in the importance of this project, and it's really feels very meaningful to be able to work on something that hopefully moves our field forward. Thank you all for being here. I know it's a busy time or a vacation-laden time, so either way, I know your time is really valuable. So reach out anytime, and thanks again. And thank you, Alex, for hosting.
Yes, thank you. Thanks everybody. I don't see any more questions here, so we're gonna let it go. And if folks are watching this later on, as Erica said, please reach out if there's questions. Reach out if you see something funky in one of the surveys. This is a collective effort by our entire community, so feedback is helpful in all shapes and sizes.
Yes, indeed. Thanks again.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye.